Captain Lee Dongwu stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship was not big or fancy like the ones the other races flew. It was a simple research vessel with 12 crew members, built by humans, who had only joined the galaxy community 5 years ago. The ship had basic shields, simple weapons, and an engine that worked but was not very fast compared to alien technology. "Captain," said Dr. Park So-jin from her station. She was the ship's scientist who studied alien life. "I am getting strange readings from the device we found at Nexus Station." Lee turned to look at her. Park was young but very smart. She had been studying the strange metal box they had discovered in the ruins of the abandoned space station. The Galactic Council had marked Nexus Station as forbidden territory, but Lee's crew had found it by accident when their navigation system broke down. "What kind of readings?" Lee asked. "The device is sending out signals. Very old signals. I think it might be some kind of message beacon left by a race that lived here long ago." Engineer Kim Tae-ho looked up from his control panel. He was a big man with strong hands who could fix anything on the ship. "Captain, we have a problem. My sensors show 60 ships coming toward us. They are moving fast." Lee felt his stomach drop. 60 ships was a battle fleet, not a patrol. "Can you tell who they are?" "Yes, sir. They are hegemony ships, the Void Talons fleet. They are the Council's military police." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew about the Void Talons. They were the most feared force in the galaxy. When the Council wanted someone captured or destroyed, they sent the Void Talons. Communications Officer Baek Ji-woo turned to the captain. She was good at languages and could speak with many different alien races. "Sir, we are getting a message from the fleet commander." "Put it on screen." The main screen changed to show an alien face. It had blue skin, 4 eyes, and sharp teeth. Lee recognized the species as a Korthax warrior. The alien spoke in a deep, threatening voice. "Human vessel Soul's Pride, this is Admiral Kexathera of the Void Talon fleet. You have stolen property from Nexus Station. Surrender now and prepare to be boarded." Lee looked at his crew. They all seemed scared but ready to follow his orders. He pressed the communication button. "Admiral, this is Captain Lee. We found the device in the ruins by accident. We did not steal anything. Nexus Station is forbidden territory. Taking anything from there is theft. You will surrender the device and submit to arrest." Lee closed the communication and turned to his navigation officer. Choi Min-ho was young but very good at flying through dangerous space. "Min-ho, can we outrun them?" "Their ships are much faster than ours, Captain. But they are big ships, we are small. Maybe we can hide or find a way they cannot follow." Dr. Park suddenly stood up from her station. "Captain, I think I know why they want this device so badly. The signals it is sending, they are not just messages. They are warnings." "Warnings about what?" "Something called the Devourers. The message says they are coming back and that humanity is important somehow." Engineer Kim checked his instruments again. "Sir, the Void Talons are getting closer. We have maybe 10 minutes before they reach us." Lee made his decision quickly. "Min-ho, plot a course for the asteroid field near the gas giant. We cannot fight 60 ships, but maybe we can lose them in the rocks." "Yes, sir." The Soul's Pride turned and started moving toward the large planet surrounded by floating rocks. The ship shook as the engines pushed harder than usual. Security. Chief Lim Jae-sung came onto the bridge. He was a former soldier who kept the crew safe. "Captain, if we are going to run, we should prepare for a long chase. They will not give up easily." Lee nodded. "Ji-woo, send a message to Earth. Tell them what happened. If something goes wrong, they need to know about the device and the warnings." "Yes, sir." Admiral Kexathera watched the human ship run toward the asteroid field. She had chased many criminals before, but they usually tried to negotiate or fight back. These humans just ran without saying anything else. "Admiral," said her second-in-command, "should we follow them into the asteroids?" "Of course, they are just humans. Their ship is old and slow. This will be over soon." But Kexathera did not know that humans had something most other races had lost long ago. They could think of new solutions when everything seemed impossible. They could make plans that did not follow the rules other species used. The Soul's Pride entered the asteroid field with the Void Talon fleet close behind. Navigation Officer Choi Min-ho flew the ship between the floating rocks like he was dancing. The big hegemony ships had trouble following the small human vessel through the tight spaces. "Captain," said Kim from his engineering station, "the device is getting more active. The signals are getting stronger." Dr. Park studied her instruments. "The closer we get to the gas giant, the stronger the signals become. I think this device is connected to something in this system." 3 Void Talon ships tried to follow the Soul's Pride through a narrow gap between 2 big asteroids. The human ship made it through easily, but the alien ships were too big. 2 of them hit the rocks and exploded. "They are having trouble following us," said Min-ho with a small smile. But Lee did not smile. He knew they could not hide forever. The hegemony had many ships and would keep looking until they found them. "Jiwoo, are you getting any responses to our message to Earth?" "No, sir, we are too far away and there is too much interference from the gas giant." The chase continued for hours. The Soul's Pride used every trick they could think of. They hid behind asteroids, used the gas giant's magnetic field to confuse sensors, and flew through areas where the radiation would damage bigger ships. By the end of the first day, the Void Talon fleet had lost 5 ships to the dangerous space around the gas giant. Admiral Kexathera was getting angry. "How are these primitive humans avoiding us?" she demanded. Her tactical officer studied the data. "They are not following standard escape patterns. They do things that make no sense, but somehow they work." As the Soul's Pride flew deeper into space, Dr. Park continued studying the device. The warnings became clearer. An ancient race had left the beacon as a message for whoever found it. They spoke of creatures from dark space that consumed entire civilizations. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think we are in more danger than just the Void Talons. This device is warning us about something much worse." Lee looked at the stars ahead of them. He did not know that by running from the hegemony fleet, he was about to lead them all toward the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. The hunt had begun, and neither the humans nor their pursuers understood what they were really chasing. 3 months had passed since the chase began, and Admiral Kexathera was starting to question everything she knew about hunting criminals. The human ship Soul's Pride was still free, and her mighty Void Talon fleet was getting smaller every day. "Report," she demanded from her command chair. Her tactical officer looked tired. "We have lost 12 ships, Admiral. The humans led us through the plasma storms near Rigel, then through the quantum maze at Beta Station. Every time we think we have them trapped, they find a way out that should be impossible." Kexathera's 4 eyes burned with anger. "They are just one small ship with primitive technology. How are they making fools of us?" On the Soul's Pride, Navigation Officer Choi Min-ho was flying the ship through another dangerous area. This time it was a field of space mines left over from an old war. The mines would explode if any ship came too close. "Captain," he said to Lee Dongwoo, "the hegemony ships are following us into the minefield." Captain Lee watched the screen, showing the explosive devices floating in space. "Can you get us through safely?" "I think so. The mines have a pattern. If I fly just right, we can make it. But the hegemony ships are much bigger. They might hit the mines even if they try to follow our exact path." Dr. Park Sojin looked up from her workstation. For 3 months she had been studying the ancient device they found. "Captain, I am learning more about the warnings. The device is not just sending messages randomly. It is trying to guide us somewhere." "Guide us where?" "I am not sure yet. But every time we change course, the device changes its signals. It is like it wants us to go to a specific place." Engineer Kim Tae-ho was working hard to keep the ship running. 3 months of constant travel and dangerous flying had put stress on all the systems. "Captain, our engines are getting tired. We cannot keep running like this forever." Communications Officer Baek Jiwoo had been trying to contact other human ships for weeks. "Sir, I am still not getting any messages from Earth or other human colonies, but I am picking up something strange." "What kind of strange?" "There are signals coming from the direction we are heading. Very old signals, but they are getting stronger." The Soul's Pride flew carefully between the space mines. Minho's hands moved quickly over his controls, making tiny adjustments to avoid the deadly explosives. Behind them, 6 Void Talon ships tried to follow. The first hegemony ship was too big and too slow. It hit 3 mines at once. The explosions lit up space like a small sun. The ship broke apart and died. The second ship tried to turn away, but hit another mine. More explosions. More death. The other 4 ships stopped and watched the Soul's Pride disappear into the distance. Admiral Kexithera received the report with growing frustration. 18 ships now, she said to herself. 18 ships lost to 1 human vessel. Her science officer, a tall creature with tentacles instead of arms, approached her station. Admiral, we have been studying the humans' flight patterns. They do not follow any known tactical doctrine. What do you mean? Most species run in predictable ways when they are being chased. They go to places where they have allies, or they follow trade routes, or they head for neutral territory. The humans do none of these things. Then what are they doing? They seem to be making decisions based on instinct. They see a dangerous area that no sane pilot would enter, and they go there. They find opportunities that our computers cannot calculate. On the Soul's Pride, Captain Yoon Hye-jin was working with Dr. Park to understand more about their situation. Yoon was the ship's other scientist, an expert in alien technology and ancient history. "Sojin," she said, "I have been thinking about what you told me about the device. You said it mentioned something called the Devourers. Yes, the messages are not complete, but I think the Devourers are creatures that eat entire civilizations. And the device said that humanity is important somehow. The exact words were, 'Humanity is the key.' But I do not understand what that means." Medical Officer Kang Yena came to the science station. She had been taking care of the crew during their long journey, treating injuries from the dangerous flying and stress from being hunted. "Maybe it means humans have something the Devourers cannot handle." "Like what?" asked Yoon. "I do not know, but we have been running from the hegemony for 3 months and we are still alive. That has to mean something." The chase continued through space. The Soul's Pride led the Void Talon fleet through asteroid belts, past exploding stars, and into areas where space itself seemed to twist in strange ways. Each time the humans found a way through, and each time the hegemony lost more ships. Communications Officer Bayek Jiwoo had been working on something secret. She was sending out signals on all frequencies, mathematical patterns, and star charts that seemed random but were not. "Jiwoo," said Captain Lee, "what are those transmissions about?" "I am not sure, Captain. The device seems to want me to send them. Every time I broadcast one of these patterns, the device gets quieter for a while, like it is satisfied. The hegemony is listening to everything we send. Are you giving them information they can use against us?" "I do not think so. The patterns are mathematical, but they do not contain information about our ship or our plans. They are more like coordinates." Security Chief Lim Jae-sung had been watching the long-range sensors. "Captain, I think the hegemony fleet is changing their tactics. They are not just chasing us anymore. They are trying to push us in a specific direction." Lee looked at the tactical display. Lim was right. The Void Talon ships were positioned so that the Soul's Pride could only run toward one part of the galaxy, the outer rim, where very few species lived. "They are hurting us," Lee realized, "like animals being driven toward a trap." Dr. Park suddenly looked up from her work with fear in her eyes. "Captain, I just decoded another part of the message. The Devourers are not just coming back. They are already here. They have been using other species to drive spacefaring races toward specific areas." "What kind of areas?" "Feeding areas, places where the Devourers can consume entire civilizations at once." The bridge became very quiet as everyone understood what this meant. They were not just being chased by the hegemony. They were all being led toward something that wanted to eat them. Engineer Oh Sung-ho, who had been quietly working on the ship's systems, spoke up. "Captain, what if that is why the ancient device wants us to send those signals? What if it is trying to warn other ships Pilot Nam Soo-jin, who helped Min-ho fly the ship during the most dangerous parts, had an idea. Maybe the device chose us because we are unpredictable. If the Devourers expect all species to act in logical ways but humans do not, maybe we can break their plans. Admiral Kexathera was starting to understand that this chase was not going the way anyone expected. Her fleet was down to 48 ships, and the humans were leading them toward the edge of known space. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "we are receiving strange transmissions from the human ship. Mathematical patterns and star charts. Are they asking for help?" "No, Admiral. They seem to be broadcasting warnings." "Warnings about what?" "We are not sure, but our science teams think they are trying to tell us about some kind of danger in the area we are all heading toward." For the first time since the chase began, Admiral Kexathara wondered if she had made a mistake. The humans were not running from her fleet. They were trying to lead her fleet away from something worse, but it was too late to stop now. The Void Talons had been chasing for too long and had lost too many ships to give up. And something in the darkness ahead was waiting for them all. Dr. Shin Eunbi had been working alone in the Soul's Pride's small archaeology lab for days. She was the ship's expert on ancient civilizations, and the device they had found was the most important discovery of her career. But as she decoded more of its messages, she began to wish they had never found it. "Captain Lee," she called over the communication system, "please come to my lab. I have found something terrible." Captain Lee Dong-woo arrived quickly. He could hear the fear in Eunbi's voice, and after 4 months of being chased, he knew to take any new threat seriously. "What have you discovered?" Eunbi pointed to her computer screen, which showed ancient symbols and their translations. The race that left this device did not disappear naturally. They were eaten by creatures from outside our galaxy, beings that feed on entire civilizations. "The Devourers that Dr. Park mentioned?" "Yes, but it is worse than we thought. The Devourers do not just attack randomly. They are smart. They use other species as tools to gather their food." Lee felt cold. "What do you mean?" "They find a powerful military force like the hegemony, and they influence their leaders to make them hunt specific targets. The hunters think they are chasing criminals or enemies, but they are really driving entire populations into areas where the Devourers can consume them easily. And we are the bait. Not just us, Captain. The entire human race. The Devourers have been planning this for years. They influenced the Galactic Council to make Nexus Station forbidden, knowing that eventually someone would find it by accident. They wanted humans to find the device." Lee looked at the ancient symbols on the screen. "Why humans?" "Because we do not think like other species. The message says that most races become predictable over time. They develop patterns of behavior that the Devourers can use against them. But humans are different. We do things that do not make logical sense, and that confuses the Devourers." Security Chief Lim Jae-sung arrived at the lab. His face was serious. "Captain, we have a bigger problem. Long-range sensors show that the Void Talon fleet is not the only one chasing us anymore. There are other fleets moving through this sector, all heading in the same direction we are." "How many ships total?" "Over 300, sir. Every major military force in the galaxy seems to be converging on the outer rim." Dr. Eunbi pulled up a star map on her screen. "This is exactly what the ancient race warned about. The Devourers are herding all the spacefaring species into one area so they can consume everyone at once." On the bridge, Dr. Park So-jin was watching her instruments with growing alarm. The device was sending out stronger signals every hour, and space itself seemed to be changing around them. "Captain," she said when Lee returned to the bridge, "the device is reacting to something ahead of us. The signals are becoming desperate." Communications Officer Baek Ji-woo looked up from her station. "Sir, I am receiving messages from other ships in the area. Not just the hegemony, but vessels from a dozen different species. They all seem to be hunting different targets, but they are all heading to the same place." Engineer Kim Tae-ho checked his instruments. "Captain, our engines are detecting some kind of distortion in space ahead of us. It is like something very big is pulling on the fabric of reality." Navigation Officer Choi Min-ho studied his star charts. "Sir, According to our maps, there should be nothing in the direction we are heading. Empty space for light years. But Lee could tell there was more. But my sensors are detecting artificial structures. Huge ones. Much bigger than any space station or ship ever built. Dr. Park suddenly stood up from her station. Captain, the device just sent a new message. It says, "The trap is ready. Turn back now or become food." Lee looked at his crew. They had been running for months, staying one step ahead of the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. But now he realized they had not been running away from danger. They had been running toward something much worse. Jiwoo, open a channel to Admiral Kexthera. Sir? Do it. The main screen showed the familiar blue face of the hegemony commander. She looked tired and angry. Human Captain, are you finally ready to surrender? Admiral, you need to listen to me carefully. We are all in danger. There is something ahead of us that wants to kill every living being in this part of the galaxy. Kexthera's 4 eyes narrowed. Is this another human trick? No trick. Your ship's my ship, all the fleets that are converging on this area. We are being herded like animals toward a slaughter. Explain. Lee quickly told the Admiral about the device, the ancient warnings, and the creatures called Devourers. As he spoke, he could see doubt and then fear growing in her alien features. You expect me to believe this story about monsters from outside our galaxy? Dr. Park stepped forward. Admiral, your science officers must be detecting the same space distortions we are. Something huge is ahead of us. Something that should not exist. There was a long pause. Then Kexthera turned to speak to someone off-screen. When she looked back, her expression had changed. My sensors confirm unusual readings. But even if your story is true, I have orders to capture you. Your orders are part of the trap, Lee said. The Devourers influenced your leaders to send you after us. They wanted you to chase us to this exact location. On her flagship, Admiral Kexthera was receiving reports from her science teams. The data was disturbing. Space ahead of them was filled with structures that seemed to exist partially outside normal reality. Energy readings were off the scale, and there were organic signatures, life forms of enormous size. Her tactical officer approached. Admiral, we are detecting other fleets in the area. The Zephyrian War Fleet, the Crystalline Armada, the Hive Mind battle groups. All the major powers are converging on this location. All chasing different targets? Yes, Admiral. But all the targets are leading them to the same place. Kexthera realized the humans might be telling the truth. She had been a military commander for 30 years, and she had never seen anything like this. On the Soul's Pride, engineer Oh Seung-ho was working with Dr. Shin Yunbi to understand more about the Devourers. How do we fight something that can consume entire civilizations? According to the ancient records, you cannot fight them directly. They are too powerful. But they have one weakness. What? They depend on predictable behavior. They influence other species to act in specific ways, creating patterns they can exploit. If you break the patterns, you can disrupt their plans. Captain Lee made a decision that surprised everyone on the bridge. Minho, turn the ship around. We are going back toward the hegemony fleet. Sir, if the Devourers expect us to keep running toward their trap, then we need to do the opposite. We are going to charge straight at our pursuers. Medical Officer Kang Yena looked confused. Captain, that seems like suicide. Maybe. But if Dr. Yunbi is right about the Devourers needing predictable patterns, then doing something completely unexpected might save all of us. The Soul's Pride turned around and began flying directly toward Admiral Kexthera's fleet. The hegemony ships were so surprised that they stopped moving for several minutes. What are the humans doing? Kexthera demanded. Her tactical officer studied his instruments. They are broadcasting on all frequencies, Admiral. They are sending everything they know about the Devourers to every ship in the sector. As the Soul's Pride approached the Void Talon fleet, space around them began to change. Reality twisted and warped as something ancient and hungry stirred in the darkness ahead. The trap was about to spring, but for the first time in a million years, the Devourers were about to encounter something they had never faced before. Organized chaos guided by human unpredictability. The Whispering Nebula was a place where space itself seemed sick. Stars flickered with unnatural colors, and the laws of physics worked differently than they should. It was here that the final confrontation began, in a region where reality grew. Thin and ancient nightmares could push through into the normal universe. Captain Li Dongwu watched as his small ship flew directly toward Admiral Kexthara's massive fleet. The Soul's Pride looked like a tiny insect compared to the hegemony warships, but Li knew that size would not matter in what was coming. "Captain," said pilot Nam Soo-jin from her station, "the Admiral is trying to lock weapons on us." "Let her. Try. Minho, are you ready for the maneuver we discussed?" Navigation Officer Choi Minho smiled despite the danger. "Yes, sir. It should not be possible, but that is what makes it perfect." Dr. Huang Min-seo, the ship's physicist, had spent days calculating what they were about to attempt. "Captain, I still think this is insane. Flying directly through their formation instead of around it goes against every rule of space combat." "That is exactly why it will work," Li replied. "The Devourers expect logical behavior. We are going to give them chaos." On the hegemony flagship, Admiral Kexthara was trying to understand what the humans were planning. "They are flying straight at us. Are they trying to ram our ship?" Her tactical officer studied the Soul's Pride's approach. "No, Admiral. Their trajectory will take them between our ships, not into them. But the gap they are aiming for is too narrow. They will hit our hull plating." "Unless they know something we do not," Kexthara said quietly. After months of chasing these humans, she had learned never to underestimate them. The Soul's Pride approached the Void Talon formation at maximum speed. At the last second, pilot Nam Soo-jin did something that should have been impossible. She rolled the ship 90 degrees and slipped it through a gap between two massive hegemony destroyers. The space was so narrow that the ship's hull scraped against both vessels, but somehow they made it through. "How did they do that?" demanded Kexthara. Her science officer checked his instruments. "Admiral, their pilot used the magnetic fields from our engines to create additional lift. It is a technique I have never seen before." But the Soul's Pride was not trying to escape. As soon as they cleared the hegemony formation, they turned around and flew back through it from the other direction. "They are not running away," Kexthara realized. "They are trying to lead us somewhere." Communications Officer Baek Ji-woo was broadcasting continuously on all frequencies. "All ships, this is the Soul's Pride. The creatures ahead of us feed on predictable behavior. If you want to survive, you need to start acting randomly." Some of the hegemony captains began to understand. Instead of maintaining perfect formation, they started flying in erratic patterns. Instead of following standard combat protocols, they began doing unexpected things. Dr. Huang Min-seo monitored his instruments as space around them continued to warp. "Captain, the Devourers are starting to emerge from whatever dimension they hide in. I am detecting massive energy signatures." The first Devourer broke through into normal space near the edge of the nebula. It was enormous, bigger than a space station, with a body that seemed to be made of living shadow and hunger. It moved toward the assembled fleets with ancient patience. "Admiral Kexthara," Li broadcast. "Can you see it now?" On her flagship, Kexthara stared at the creature on her main screen. Her military training had prepared her for many things, but not for something like this. "What does it want?" "It wants to eat your entire civilization," Dr. Park So-jin answered over the communication channel. "It feeds on organized societies, consuming their technology, their knowledge, their life force." More Devourers began emerging from dark space. Soon there were dozens of them, surrounding the combined fleets of multiple galactic powers. The creatures communicated with each other through sounds that made the hulls of nearby ships vibrate. Engineer Ryu Jun-gi had been working with captured hegemony technology for hours, trying to create weapons that could hurt the Devourers. "Captain, conventional weapons will not work against these things. They exist partially outside our dimension. What will work? I do not know, but I have an idea. What if we combine our technology with theirs in ways that make no sense? Random combinations that follow no logical pattern?" Li understood immediately. "Do it. Make weapons that should not work but somehow do." Ryu began connecting human systems to alien technology in ways that violated every engineering principle he knew. He attached their navigation computer to the hegemony's quantum torpedo launcher. He wired their life support system into their weapons array. None of it should have functioned, but somehow it did. The first devourer reached the outer edge of the fleet formation. It extended tendrils of living darkness toward a crystalline armada battleship. The alien vessel's shields failed instantly, and its crew began screaming as their life force was drained away. All ships, Lee broadcast. Attack pattern random 7. Do not coordinate your fire. Do not follow any tactical doctrine. Just shoot at different targets with whatever weapons you have. Admiral Kexathara hesitated for only a moment. Then she gave the order. All Void Talon ships, fire at will, no coordination, random targets. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of organized military tactics, it was controlled chaos. Ships fired in all directions, used weapons in ways they were not designed for, and flew in patterns that made no strategic sense. The Devourers, ancient creatures that had consumed 1,000 civilizations, suddenly found themselves confused. They had spent millions of years learning to predict and counter organized resistance. But this was not organized. This was madness with purpose. Medical Officer Kang Ye-na found herself treating wounded from both human and alien ships as the battle raged around them. Captain, we are taking heavy damage, but so are the Devourers. She was right. The random attacks were working. When the creatures tried to predict where the next shot would come from, they guessed wrong. When they tried to counter a tactical move, the ships were already doing something else entirely. Security Chief Lim Jae-sung coordinated with alien security forces to protect the combined fleet's most vulnerable ships. Captain, the enemy is starting to retreat, but we are losing a lot of ships too. Lee looked at the tactical display. Half the hegemony fleet was gone. The Soul's Pride was badly damaged, but the Devourers were pulling back, their ancient confidence shaken by their first encounter with true unpredictability. Ji-woo, open a channel to all ships. All vessels, this is Captain Lee of the Soul's Pride. We have shown them something they have never seen before, but this is not over. They will adapt and return with new strategies. Admiral Kexthara's voice came over the communication system. Human Captain, my fleet is in ruins, but my species lives. How did you know this would work? Because humans do not think like other species, Admiral. We make plans that do not follow logic. We solve problems by trying things that should not work, and sometimes that is exactly what the galaxy needs. Dr. Shin Yunbi studied the readings from the ancient device. Captain, the Devourers are not gone. They are regrouping in dark space, but the device is sending a new message. What does it say? It says that for the first time in 1,000,000 years the pattern has been broken. The hunt is over, but the real test is just beginning. As the damaged fleets tried to reorganize, Lee realized that humanity had just become something new in the galaxy. They were no longer the newcomers being chased by more powerful forces. They had become the teachers, showing the older races how to fight the impossible by embracing the unexpected. But the Devourers were ancient and patient. They would learn from this defeat and return stronger. The question was, would the galaxy be ready for them? Dark space was a place that should not exist. It was the empty area between galaxies where normal physics did not work, and ancient horrors waited in the endless cold. The battle that would decide the fate of all civilized life was about to begin. There, in a realm where the rules of reality bent and twisted like metal in a fire, the combined fleet of humans and aliens followed the Soul's Pride into this impossible place. Captain Lee Dongwoo knew it was probably suicide, but staying in normal space meant waiting for the Devourers to return with better plans and stronger forces. Captain, said Dr. Park Seo-jin, the ancient device is going crazy. It is sending out signals faster than I can read them. What is it trying to tell us? I think it is trying to guide us to the Devourers' home base, the place where they have been hiding for millions of years. Admiral Kexathara's voice came over the communication system. Her fleet had been reduced to 20 ships, but she and Her remaining crews had decided to follow the humans into the darkness. "Human captain, my science team say we are approaching something that should not exist." Lee looked at his tactical display. Ahead of them, floating in the void between galaxies, was a structure so large it made planets look like pebbles. It was made of materials that seemed to shift and change as they watched, and it pulsed with a hungry life that made everyone who looked at it feel sick. "That is where they come from," whispered Dr. Shin Yunbi. "The Devourer's nest." The structure was not empty. Hundreds of Devourers moved around it like insects around a hive. But these were larger than the ones they had fought before, and they seemed more organized. In dark space, the creatures were stronger and smarter. Engineer Kim Tae-ho worked frantically to keep the Soul's Pride functioning in the strange environment. "Captain, our systems are failing. Dark space is not meant for ships like ours. How long do we have?" "Maybe an hour before our engines shut down completely." Medical Officer Kang Ye-na moved through the ship, treating crew members who were getting sick from exposure to the unnatural energies of dark space. "Captain, we are not built to survive in this place." But pilot Nam Soo-jin had an idea. "What if that is our advantage? The Devourers expect us to fail here. What if we use our weakness as a weapon?" Lee understood what she meant. "You want to crash the ship into their nest." "Not crash, ram, at full speed with all our remaining power focused into the engines." It was an insane plan, but Lee had learned that insane plans sometimes worked when nothing else would. "All hands, prepare for impact. This is going to hurt." The Soul's Pride turned toward the massive alien structure and began accelerating. Behind them, Admiral Kexathera's ships followed, adding their firepower to the desperate attack. The Devourers noticed the approaching ships and moved to intercept them. In dark space, the creatures were even more terrifying. They moved faster, hit harder, and seemed almost impossible to hurt with conventional weapons. But engineer Ryu Jun-gi had spent the journey into dark space, building something that had never been tried before. He had connected every system on the ship to every other system in ways that made no engineering sense. The result was a weapon that ran on controlled chaos. "Captain, firing the impossible cannon," he announced. The weapon discharged a beam of pure randomness at the nearest Devourer. The creature, expecting some form of organized energy attack, tried to absorb and redirect the beam. Instead, it was hit with something that followed no pattern at all. The Devourer writhed in confusion and pain before dissolving into dark space. "It worked," shouted Dr. Hwang Min-seo. "Random energy patterns hurt them." The battle became a desperate race against time. The Soul's Pride and its alien allies fought their way through swarms of Devourers, while their ship slowly failed in the hostile environment of dark space. Every minute, more systems shut down, and more crew members collapsed from the unnatural energies. Security Chief Lim Jae-sung coordinated the defense of the ship's critical areas. "Captain, we are losing life support on decks 3 and 4. Evacuate those areas." "How much farther to the nest?" Navigation Officer Choi Min-ho checked his instruments. 2 minutes at current speed, sir." Communications Officer Baek Ji-woo was still broadcasting signals based on the ancient device's instructions. "Captain, I think the device is trying to activate something inside the Devourer's nest. Some kind of ancient weapon left by the race that built it." The Soul's Pride smashed through the outer defenses of the alien structure. The ship's hull cracked and atmosphere leaked out into the void, but they kept flying toward the heart of the nest. Admiral Kexathera's remaining ships provided cover fire, their weapons creating patterns of light in the darkness. "Human captain, we cannot follow you inside. Our ships are too large." "Then cover our escape route," Lee replied. "If we survive this, we will need a way out." The Soul's Pride entered the Devourer's nest through what looked like an organic opening in the structure's side. Inside, the ship flew through corridors made of living tissue and metal that seemed to grow rather than being built. Dr. Park So-jin studied her readings as they penetrated deeper into the structure. "Captain, this place is incredibly old. I think it existed before our galaxy was even formed. How long have the Devourers been using it? Millions of years. Maybe longer." At the center of the nest, they found what the ancient device had been guiding them toward. It was a chamber filled with technology that combined organic and mechanical elements in ways that hurt to look at. And floating in the middle of it was something that looked like a giant brain made of dark energy. That is their command center, realized Dr. Shin Yun-bi. The thing that coordinates all the Devourers across the galaxy. Engineer Oh Seung-ho had been working with the ancient device throughout their journey. Captain, the device says we need to connect it to that brain thing. It will activate a weapon that the original builders hid here. What kind of weapon? The kind that turns the Devourer's own hunger against them. Lee made the decision quickly. Do it. Oh carried the ancient device to the center of the chamber, while the rest of the crew defended their position against the Devourers that were pouring into the room. The device began to glow as it connected to the alien brain. Suddenly, every Devourer in the chamber stopped moving. Then they began to scream, a sound that made the walls of the nest shake and crack. What is happening? Asked Kang Yena. Dr. Park checked her instruments. The device is feeding the Devourers' hunger back into themselves. They are consuming their own life force. The effect spread throughout the nest. The ancient structure began to collapse as the creatures that had maintained it for millions of years destroyed themselves in an endless cycle of consumption. We need to get out of here now, Lee announced. The Soul's Pride, now barely functional, fought its way back through the collapsing nest. The ship's hull was cracked, its engines were failing, and half the crew was unconscious, but they made it to the exit where Admiral Kexathera's ships were waiting. As they escaped into normal space, they watched the Devourer's nest tear itself apart in dark space. The ancient structure collapsed into nothing, taking with it the creatures that had threatened the galaxy for so long. Is it over? Asked Minho. Dr. Shin Yun-bi checked the ancient device, which had gone silent after completing its purpose. The immediate threat is over, but the device has one more message. What does it say? It says that the galaxy now has guardians who cannot be predicted or controlled. It says that humanity has broken the cycle of fear that allowed the Devourers to exist. Admiral Kexathera's face appeared on their communication screen. She looked tired but grateful. Human Captain, my fleet is destroyed, but my species lives because of what you did. How do we repay such a debt? You do not repay it, Admiral. You remember it. And you make sure that everyone in the galaxy knows the new rule. What rule? Captain. Lee smiled as he looked at his damaged ship and injured crew. They had started this journey being chased by the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. They were ending it as the teachers who had saved everyone. Never chase humans, he said. We do not run from you. We lead you where you need to go. Years later, the Galactic Council would establish the Soul Doctrine as the most important law in space. When humanity runs, let them run. When they fight, fight beside them. When they do the impossible, get out of their way and learn from them. The ancient device sent one final message before its power died completely. The students have become the teachers. The cycle is broken. The galaxy is safe. And in the darkest corners of space where predators lurk and hunt civilized worlds, a new understanding spread among the creatures that feed on fear and predictability. There was a species now that could not be hunted, could not be predicted, and could not be controlled. The oldest rule in the galaxy was now written in blood and starlight. Do not chase the humans, because when you chase humanity, you do not catch them. You follow them into the impossible, and you come back either broken or changed forever.